Hi, everybody. It is Dan and Chris back with another episode of A Father's Love Healing Through Heartache. Chris, how you doing tonight, my friend?
Hey Dan, how's it going, buddy?
Good, good, good. Chris and I are thrilled tonight. We have another father that has reached out to us and wants to share his story. And I'm really excited to talk tonight with Rob Rosenblatt. Rob has written to me a few times, just really interested in sharing his story, and I don't know what else, but I'm excited to hear what he wants to say and give him the opportunity to talk, because he clearly is interested in sharing it. So, Rob, welcome to A Father's Love Healing Through Heartache. It's great to have you here. And without any further introduction, the floor is yours. Tell us your story and whatever you want to say, my friend.
Awesome, Dan. Thank you. I appreciate you and Chris having me on and allowing me to share my story. As we were talking before the show got on, oftentimes talking about the loss of a child is sometimes considered taboo, and people don't know really what to say and how to act around you, especially being a male and being a father. It's just very, very different. There's so many groups out there that are for moms, and there's not enough for dads and not enough support for us. So I think the fact that you guys are doing this is very, very commendable. It gives us a chance to kind of share our story. And, you guys mentioned therapeutic for yourselves. I think this is definitely very therapeutic for me as well. Any chance I get to tell the story of my beautiful princess, I absolutely relish in it, because she was only with us for 11 days, as I will share in my story. But one day, 11 days, five years, a loss is a loss, and it was very, very difficult. And so I'm very, very fortunate to be here. My story begins pretty much last February, prior to the pandemic. I mean, I can even go back prior to that. Currently, I'm a principal out here in Las Vegas, Nevada. Prior to that, I was a teacher, taught fourth and fifth grade. I've been a baseball and soccer coach, many different roles that I've had, where I've been considered a father figure. But here, as of February last year, I was a 40-year-old man, not married, no kids of my own. And everybody always told me, when you have your own kids, you'll know a different type of love. And as a like a father figure to these kids, it was one thing, but becoming a father, I just cannot express. I can't put into words what it means to be a father. And so last February, actually, like prior to the pandemic, I met who is now my current wife, through a former student of mine, when I was an assistant principal. So mom ended up calling or reached out to me one day, and she said, Mr. Rosenblatt, this might be out of line, but are you single? I have a friend who wants to meet you. And of course, I responded with, yep, this is absolutely out of line, but I'm interested. Next thing you know, we started texting each other back and forth, and went on our first date. And then the pandemic happened, everything shut down. So we kind of just talked briefly, texting here and there for a couple weeks, and then finally, at the end of March of 2020, I decided to go over her house for the first time, and pretty much never left. She had no kids of her own. I had no kids, of course, as I stated. And she never wanted to have any kids. And me being me, I've always been a father figure, and I wanted to have my own kids. And so, like I said, she didn't want any. So it was probably like May or June. And again, it happened really quick. But again, pandemic, pretty much together 24/7. We knew right away what that we were meant to be together. And so in June, she came to me and she said, I think I can be a mother with you. And so at that point, of course, we decided to see what happens. We weren't actively trying, of course. And then one thing led to another, and we found out in July, it was actually right after 4th of July, that she was pregnant. And again, very, very quick. We've known each other for 4 months, and next thing you know, she's pregnant. Didn't think anything of it as far as the time frame, just because, again, when you know. And the second we found out that she was pregnant, I shouldn't say the second, probably a couple hours after that, I said to her, oh, honey, I forgot to tell you, twins run in my family. I bet you're having twins. And just kept on making jokes about it for the next, few weeks. I kept on making jokes. We were talking about buying the house, and I'm like, oh, I can't wait till we get our new house for the 4 of us. And just always referred to our family as the four of us. And so we had our first ultrasound, and of course, I wasn't allowed up there, so I was FaceTiming with her, and the doctors there didn't want to do any kind of scan or check anything. So I talked her into forcing them to do it. And so at the ultrasound, I guess, yeah, they were doing the scan, and I have her on the FaceTime, and the nurse in there says, "There's two heartbeats in there." And you could hear she was all the way upstairs and I was in the car. You could hear my wife say, "No fucking way," as loud as she could. And because, again, I was saying that the entire time. And so here she is now pregnant with twins. My grandmother was a twin. I lost my grandmother in 2014. So really, really close with her twin sister as well. And so we knew somebody in my family would have twins. And I was so very lucky that it was me and my wife Crystal. And so here we are with twins. And then the next couple of months we would go to their ultrasounds. She ended up, because she was twins, because we're having twins, was high risk, and so she had more doctor's appointments than normal. And it was probably around beginning of September, I would say, where they started mentioning things about we found out that we were having a boy and a girl. And so it was around, like I said, September, where they started mentioning that our baby girl was measuring smaller than our boy. And I reached out to some of my friends who had twins, and they're like, "Oh, it's not a big deal. It's very normal. It's common." I had talked to one who had a 7-pound baby and a 4-pound baby at birth. So, at the time, we really weren't thinking too much of it. They were monitoring it. September rolls around, October, we go through October. November 7th, actually, we ended up getting married. And we got married out here by Elvis. Of course, we were in Las Vegas, and I wore my pink suit, and she wore her blue dress in honor of our two beautiful babies. And right around that time is when it started to get a little more serious, as far as our baby B, our twin B, our girl, was measuring considerably smaller. And baby A was growing. Baby B really wasn't growing too much. And then finally, we had another ultrasound at the beginning of December. And at that point, let me back up. At every ultrasound, the doctor would always tell us that baby B is measuring small, and he would always give us scenarios. And my question at the end of every ultrasound was, "Is it possible that everything's okay?" And he would say, "It's possible." And so the beginning of December rolled around, and we had the ultrasound, and it was at that point when he said he saw things with the heart, because now the organs, of course, as you guys know, organs are developing, and he saw things with the heart and saw things with the brain. And he said that there's something wrong. And again, my question was, "Is it possible that everything's going to be okay?" And his response, "Unfortunately, we're past that point." And so here we are at the beginning of December, absolutely devastated, because we have no idea what's going to happen with our little girl. Doctor also told us at that appointment that he wants to send us to the cardiologist at the end of December. So here we are now, waiting for 4 weeks from beginning of December to the end of December to see a cardiologist. He mentioned that it is very possible that when we go to see the cardiologist in 4 weeks, that our baby girl might not have a heartbeat. And so the entire time, too, each appointment that we had, we always asked our options, and he mentioned possible termination of the birth. And of course, if we did that, it would end up being both babies. And we said, absolutely not. There's nothing wrong with our baby boy. So we're not going to risk the entire pregnancy. We just we want to ride it out and see what's going to happen. So, needless to say, the whole month of December, we went through the holiday season, and it was very, very, very stressful. And I think our appointment was December 29th. And prior to that, her and I just, during the Christmas time, we just watched all kinds of Christmas movies. And it was, as you know, with Christmas movies, it's all about the Christmas miracle. So my thing was always, what if we go on the 29th and doctors say everything's okay, and it's our Christmas miracle, everything's going to be fine. And that was my hope, and trying to be positive the entire time. My wife, being the realist that she was, she didn't even want to think. I shouldn't even say realist. She didn't want to get her hopes up for anything. And so she is like, we'll have to see what happens. And so it was, needless to say, those 4 weeks, very, very little sleeping, a lot of tears. And I think anytime I tried to avoid drinking beverages, because anytime I had an adult beverage, of course, the emotions came out even more. And I know there was one night that I was actually drinking, and I just, I said to my wife, all I want to do is just hold my baby girl for 1 minute, just be able to hold her. And so December 29th rolled around for our ultrasound with the cardiologist, and we had regular ultrasound and the cardiologist. So first we met with the cardiologist, did the scan, had my wife turn in all kinds of different positions. And he told us at that point that it looks like she has what's called truncus. Truncus, as we did the research, it affects 250 babies a year in the United States. And it's basically when there's supposed to be two valves and one of the valves isn't working, and the heart is basically, rather than having chambers, is one big clump, is basically kind of how he explained it to us. And he did mention that at that point, as far as the truncus goes, that after she is born, there are things that they can do to repair her heart. And so, of course, we're sitting there, doctors telling us that the heart's fixable, it's going to be a couple of procedures, but baby girl's heart's going to be okay, could be okay. And so he leaves, and then her doctor, who we were very fortunate that this one doctor that she met with at the high-risk place had twins herself, and she wasn't as optimistic as our cardiologist was, and she mentioned that she has fluid on her brain, and she looks like she has what is called, I always get it wrong when I try to say it, so I'm going to try it. It's holoprosencephaly, I believe is how it's pronounced. And basically what that means is that her brain isn't developing. So there's different the brain's supposed to be split into two hemispheres, and with holoprosencephaly, the brain does not split into two hemispheres. And so it looked like she had a very severe case of it, is what they said. And at that point, she said that we're just going to go week by week. My wife is going to come in for ultrasounds and see what happens. It's very possible next week we come in, there's no heartbeat. And so every single ultrasound, again, it was during the time of COVID, things were really shut down. Fathers were not allowed in the room with their wives, but they were always snuck me in the back door because our situation was very severe, because at any point we could be going to a doctor and our baby girl might not be breathing anymore, might not be alive anymore. So they allowed me to go, and I was so thankful for the high-risk pregnancy center out here for allowing that. And, every ultrasound we went to, she wasn't really growing much. Baby boy was doing great, and I keep leaving him out. Oliver is his name. Oliver Jameson, actually. Jameson being the middle name, which, sorry, Dan. So Oliver was doing great the entire time and measuring really well. He was actually, there was one point when he was like in the 97th percentile as a twin. It was, yeah. So, we always make jokes that he was stealing her food and whatnot. So time went on, the weeks passed, and every ultrasound, she's not growing. Oliver's doing great. And finally, my wife woke up on the morning of February. Oh, actually, let me back that up before I get to there. We have one of the top NICUs in, I'm going to say is the country, is here at Sunrise Hospital. And so they set up, because of everything with our baby girl, our doctors were able to set us up with an appointment to go and meet the doctors that's going to deliver our babies. So we were able to go in, it was like February, I want to say beginning of February, like 4th or 6th, we were able to make an appointment to go in, and we met with the doctor, and at that point, Aurora was still with us, and they asked us what we wanted to do, because if Aurora is our daughter's name, if she is born and everything is what they're saying, do we want to intervene? Do we want to put her on a ventilator? Do we, want to give her feeding tube? Do we want to do those things where she would have no quality of life, pretty much, or do we just want to let things happen? And so, a situation like that, I know can, and as fathers, you probably will attest to this, it could rip a couple apart. And my wife and I, from the moment everything started with Aurora to the day that she passed, we had very little conversation on things because we agreed 100% with everything that we were doing. We were totally in sync with each other, with Aurora. So the fact that this happened, it just made us even closer because we never disagreed or fought about anything with her, which I'm so fortunate for because could have been a lot worse. And so we went to the NICU, and we, again, at that point, we told the doctors that we just want her just comfort care. We just want to make sure that she's comfortable. We don't want to put her through anything. We don't want to prolong her life if she's not going to have a life, in the sense of quality of life. So we made that choice, and we stuck by that the entire time. The doctors and the nurses at the NICU at Sunrise Hospital were very supportive, and social worker met with us, and they were just absolute. I cannot put into words how great everybody was there. So they told us that at any time that Crystal felt weird or wanted to come in. So that leads us to the morning of February 11th, and Crystal woke up in the morning, and her exact words were, "I feel weird." And she called her high-risk doctor, and she was waiting for a call back. And I'm like, "Honey, they said anytime you don't feel right, just let's go in." And so she's like, "Okay, let's go to the hospital." She gets in the car, we go to the hospital, and she's like, "Oh, they're going to make fun of me. They're going to call me a baby. They're going to call me because nothing's wrong. They're just going to tell me it's Braxton Hicks." So we get there, and the nurse at the desk is like, "Honey, you're probably having Braxton Hicks, but let's bring you to the back. I'm going to educate you." Meanwhile, at the time, they checked her blood pressure. Her blood pressure was really high, and they decided that they were going to deliver the twins by C-section that day. Their due date was March 18th, and it's February 11th, and so they were going to deliver our twins 5 weeks early. And I think anytime you're going to have a C-section or any kind of surgery, or whether it's or just deliver babies, I think the stress, I mean, you guys can attest to this, I'm sure, the stress and the anxiety is through the roof. And for us, it was probably tenfold because here's our babies are going to be born, and we have no idea what's going to be going on with our baby girl. Is she going to be breathing? Is she going to have a heartbeat? With the whole prosencephaly, there's sometimes facial deformities, cleft palates. There's a lot of things that could be wrong, and we didn't know what our baby girl was going to look like. So there was a lot of stress, a lot of tears at that point too. Well, more from my wife. I of course tried to be the man. Well, deep down inside, I would walk away and just, yeah. And so, they took her back at about 12:30, drugged her up, and Oliver was cut out at 1:13 p.m. crying and doing his thing, measuring 6 pounds, 8 ounces. And 2 minutes later at 1:15, our beautiful Aurora was born. And doctors doctors picked her up, and she was crying. And I can't even put into words the emotion and the relief that we felt at that point. I'm a very sensitive guy, but I think that was probably one of the most emotional times I've ever had in my life, being able to hear my baby girl, who all I wanted to do was hold her one time, and she's crying. She wasn't just breathing. She didn't just have a heartbeat, but she's crying on top of that. And honestly, she was crying more than Oliver. They did all their stuff. I was able to cut the cords of both babies. I was able to hold them, and we got pictures. And we were very fortunate at the time too with Sunrise. They let a photographer come into the delivery room, to the C-section. So we got so many photos in there because, again, we didn't know what was going on with the baby. This could be our only family photos. And so we had so many memories from that. And doctor ended up taking Oliver to the NICU. His lungs were not doing what they were supposed to be doing. And they kind of warned us of that beforehand, being 5 weeks early. And they asked us again what we want to do with Aurora, and we wanted to keep her with us. So we decided we stuck with the path of comfort care for our little girl. And the day went on, and she was still with us because the entire time, if she's born, you're going to get minutes or hours. And here we are on 2 hours, 4 hours, 6 hours. And that night, again, Aurora was born at 1:15. think it was about 8, 9 o'clock that night. She wasn't feeding with a bottle. She was only feeding with a syringe. She was born at she was 3 pounds, 2 ounces. So very tiny. So she wasn't able to take in a lot of food. And we decided that night that if she makes it through the night, that the next morning we were going to reach out to doctors and see if they can do an ultrasound or do a scan of her brain, of her head, to see if, because of course everything they told us about Aurora was through mommy's stomach. So now that she's born, maybe there's going to be more, maybe they're going to see more. And again, the doctors there, this was now Friday, the doctors were, again, absolutely amazing. We asked for an ultrasound and they did it. They did a scan of her head. They came down like right away. And, they of course gave us devastating news that everything that they thought was true, that she does have the holoprosencephaly. Her brain, she had a brain stem, very little lower brain. And so she had a lobar, a holoprosencephaly. So basically the brain didn't develop at all. Her head was big, but it was all fluid. So the hydrocephalus as well. They said that she would not feel hunger. She wouldn't feel pain. She wouldn't know when she went to the bathroom. They told us these things. This is now Friday. And keep in mind, here we are still in the hospital with her in the room with us. And Oliver is also in NICU. Luckily, he was, we're at the same hospital, so we're able to go back and forth and see them. So we took turns going down to see Oliver. That night, Aurora, it was probably 1 o'clock in the morning. And she just wouldn't stop crying. And she, pretty much from the moment she was born, she cried. And I wouldn't even say cried. She had this beautiful squeak. We have a Facebook page that we created for her called Aurora's Story. So if you ever get a chance to check it out, it has the entire story there. A lot of Facebook Live videos, and you can hear her squeak. And it is the most precious thing in the world. And she became, in her short 11 days, she became very famous with her followers with her infamous squeak. And she, at that point, again, she was crying, but we gave her the syringe and to eat, and then she would stop crying. We changed her diaper, and she would stop crying. So here we are being told our little girl's not supposed to feel these things, and we as parents felt like, okay, she does. So we ended up meeting with another doctor at the hospital, and she told us that some of these babies actually do feel things, and it's possible that she does. So that was the only point where we felt like we were getting misinformation. You told us she's not going to, but now you're telling that she is. And so they ended up having a neurosurgeon from Utah flying in on Monday. So they let us stay until Monday so that we can meet with the neurosurgeon. And so we met with the neurosurgeon, and he did a scan and he looked at everything, and he again on Monday. So we got second and third opinions, and again they said holoprosencephaly, that she could, because her lungs were really strong, and at the time her heart was really strong. They said that she could be with us for a couple months, possibly, if we don't do any interventions. And so we were able to bring something we never thought we were able to do. We're going to do. We brought her home on February. Was that February 14th or 15th is when we brought her. I believe it was the 15th we actually brought her home. And it was very difficult, very fortunate to bring her home, but also very difficult at the same time, because here's Oliver still in the NICU. His lungs were getting better, but he wasn't eating. So now they're telling my wife, who just had a C-section, who has this baby girl that at any time could pass, they're telling her that she cannot drive because of her C-section. And she's like, how am I supposed to go? And you're like, I have to be home with Aurora, and if she's going to be there, or vice versa. So that was a real struggle. So of course, she, being her stubborn little ass, she decided to drive anyway. Luckily, she was okay with that. So she would drive back and forth. I would stay home with Aurora. She would go to the NICU. And we did that for a few days. And we were told for starting on Thursday of that week that Oliver could be coming home. And he didn't come home until Saturday. But the first time, let me go back to when we were in the hospital. So like I stated, Aurora cried and cried and cried and cried and cried. The first time we were able to have the babies together, when we were in the NICU, they allowed us to bring Aurora down and put her next to Oliver. And again, there's a Facebook Live of when we did that on Aurora's Story. The second we put Aurora down, she stopped crying. And it was like she knew her brother was there. And so you hear about this twin magic thing. It's twin magic because like they felt each other, and she, yeah, it was absolutely amazing to see that in action. So we finally, after going back and forth, and baby girl, I mean, Aurora was doing great while she was with us. I mean, everything was fine. And then Saturday, which was the 20th of February, we were able to go and pick up Oliver. We flew one of my cousins from Arizona in, and so she ended up staying at the house with Aurora, which was the only time that Aurora in her entire life was away from us. But our cousin who was here was, we definitely trusted her with our life, or we wouldn't have done that. And so Crystal and I went to go pick up Oliver on the 20th, got Oliver home, and here we are. Here at that point, we were at home with our two beautiful babies, which we were told would never happen, and we have both of them at home with us. Ironically enough, that's the night that Aurora started going downhill, and she woke up on Sunday morning. She stopped eating on Saturday night. She woke up on Sunday morning and just wasn't herself, wasn't squeaking, wasn't making any, really being herself. Crystal and I went as far as calling our families and letting them know that, it's going to happen soon. Again, we were in sync with her the entire time, and we just knew it was going to happen. She didn't eat at all that Sunday. Monday rolled around, and Oliver, of course, had to go to his first doctor's appointment. And we had, in the meantime, back up to, we did have hospice. Sunrise Hospital did set up hospice to come in, and so we had a nurse come in, and she didn't really do much, and we didn't want her to do much. She gave us some morphine and some other drugs in case Aurora needed it, but we didn't really want to do any of the interventions. She was mainly to kind of check her vitals, and her vitals were strong every single time she was there until Monday, the February 22nd, rolled around. I took Oliver to the doctor appointment, and Crystal was at home. Actually, let me back that up. We were both at home, and then I ended up taking Oliver later, or vice versa. Either way, it doesn't matter. And so we were there with the hospice doctor and the nurse, and they told us at that point that she was down to just probably a few hours left. And so this is February 22nd, and while I was out at the doctor, Crystal was able to set up another photographer to come in from Now I Lay Me Down to Sleep. They do photography for families that have lost or getting ready to lose a child, and so they came, and we got some amazing photos from them as well. There was a arts and crafts lady, I don't even know what I would call her, arts and crafts lady that came in with them as well. We got canvas footprint or plaster footprints. We got canvas handprints of both babies. They recorded at 4:00 in the afternoon that day. They recorded They did Doppler recording of her heartbeat, and her heartbeat was still very strong at that point, which they ended up putting in a stuffed animal, which we actually received on the day of her service. And then that night at 7:00, Crystal and I had just bought a house, so we had the notary. Our traveling notary come to the house, and Crystal had told the notary prior to that we may have to cancel because there could be an emergency. So here we are signing our life away. They're getting $400,000 into debt, and Crystal's like, let's take the babies with us so we can do this as a family. I'm holding Oliver, and Crystal's holding Aurora, and we just like her breathing was becoming labored at that point, and her hands were starting to turn blue and change colors throughout the day. And Crystal was holding her, and she looked down at our princess and looked over at me and just smiled. And that was the point where she passed. We were again getting $400,000 in debt and signing our life away, and she decided to stop fighting. And kind of ironic how it happened that Aurora didn't have one of her she didn't have thumbs. So Crystal and I joked after that if she did have a middle finger, that was her way of giving us the middle finger. Ha ha, mom and dad, you guys are getting in debt, and now I'm leaving. So we kind of joke about that now. But yeah, she came into the world with mommy, and then left in mommy's arms, and then we ended up having the nurse come by and check everything, and sure enough, they pronounced her that she passed at 7:40 that evening, and the world stopped. I just remember waking up the next morning and everything was just slow, like just I can't. I mean, I don't think you can put it into words, but just everything didn't. It was kind of tough when I say everything didn't matter, because here we are. We have a beautiful, handsome, chunky little baby boy with us, but here we are losing our beautiful princess, and it was very difficult. I mean, I think that's an understatement of a word, to say difficult. To be happy for what we had with Oliver, but also losing our baby girl. I just remember that morning too, the morning of the 23rd, I had Oliver laying in my chest, and I took a picture of us, and I'm like, that's how I know everything's going to be okay. And everybody's story is different. I know, like I said, as far as I know, we've had people on here or you guys have had people on here whose kids live to 5, 12 years old, 24, 40 years old, and here I am, only with my baby girl for 11 days. A loss is a loss. And, we always we will always question, I think, did we do the right thing for her? Because what if we intervened? But if we would have intervened, we may not have had any time with her at home. We may not have had any time with our babies together. And we are very, very fortunate to have those 11 days and to be able to look back on all those memories. I mean, I go through my phone and I have I have a poster that I made for a service, which is actually hanging in my office here at the school, and it has about 30 pictures on it. But we went through over 3,000 pictures of Aurora and Oliver in just 11 days to put something like that together. So, and so after that, I mean, it's like I said, it's now just honoring our little girl through everything we can. Crystal and I both got our tattoos, so you will see. Of course, nobody can see it. You guys can see it, of course, but I got the unicorn to represent Aurora with All Hail Princess Aurora on it as well. So she was named after Princess Aurora from Sleeping Beauty, because we thought that she was going to be our Sleeping Beauty, and she is our Sleeping Beauty. And so we also have the TFF on there on the unicorn. Crystal has one as well. She has little stick figures, and underneath Aurora, she has the TFF, and the TFF is actually also on her headstone. Crystal, Aurora always made this face where she sucked in her bottom lip, and it was the most beautiful face. And Crystal would always say, "That fucking face." I don't know if I'm allowed to swear. Is that legal? Is that allowed?
Yeah, I think you're okay.
And so she actually wanted to get that on Aurora's headstone. And I'm like, honey, I don't think we should probably get that on headstone, because other people are going to be looking at it. So that's where we ended up abbreviating it to the TFF. So that's a little secret, and I hope I don't get in trouble for my wife for letting that out right now. But that's the TFF. And then All Hail Princess Aurora. Every time that I post anything on her story or on my Facebook about her, it's always All Hail Princess Aurora, which again is from the Sleeping Beauty. So I know we're recording this right now here in October, so it means a lot to me that I'm able to be here with you guys during Pregnancy and Infant Loss Awareness Month, because last Friday we had a bunch of people light candles in the memory for the wave of light, light candles in remembrance of our baby girl, and she touched so many people. And I think Crystal and I sleep easy and we can rest easy knowing that we are fortunate that in 11 days that all this little girl knew was love. She was loved by us. She was loved by people that didn't even know her. There's people that still reach out to us and tell us how much they miss her, and they never even met her. I think the only people that really met her besides doctors were Crystal, myself, and my in person, and my cousin Cindy from Arizona, who was in town. Besides that, nobody really, and a couple of our other friends really got a chance to meet her. But all this girl knew was love, and so we are very blessed and fortunate that we did get those 11 days. It doesn't make her not being here any easier, of course. So we're in the process of doing things. We want to create a nonprofit in her memory. We've actually already started the process of it, called Aurora Story Corporation, where we can help raise money and raise awareness of the holoprosencephaly, as well as unfortunately there are families that have to deal with the loss of a child, and the funeral expenses are absolutely outrageous. And so part of this, what we want to do is we want to get back to those families that are dealing with what we are dealing with, and kind of help them out with some possible expenses as well. So that's our big picture with her. Oliver right now, he just turned 8 months on October 11th, and boy, is this like he's recently started doing this thing where he sucks in his bottom lip, looking just like his sister too. It's absolutely adorable. I think as he's teething, he's starting to do it, or he just knows his sister and remembers her. Every month, on the 11th, on their birthday, we go to where she is laid to rest. We take pictures of her and Oliver together. The 22nd, the day that she passed, we go there as well. So we're doing everything we can to honor the memory of our princess, and want to make sure that Oliver, he knows her. He grows up knowing that he was a twin, knowing that how strong and how absolutely amazing his sister was, because that little girl was a fighter. To give us 11 days when doctors said minutes or hours, we are so very fortunate. And that just goes back to what we talked about at the beginning here. I love talking about her, and I'm sure you guys can attest to how much you love talking about your children, as your child as well. It's very therapeutic, but so many people think the subject is taboo, and you don't know how to, especially as a male. And we're not supposed to have feelings, and we're supposed to be strong for our wives and our children, but we do have feelings. And some of us, like myself, is a very, very sensitive guy, and so it just means a lot to me that I'm able to share her story and talk about her, and to have a platform like this. So, guys, I really do appreciate you letting me share a little bit about her, let people get a chance to know her. Again, I'm very, very, I'm in a good place, knowing that she did give us those 11 days. And I feel I'm in a good place right now. So I do appreciate you guys letting me talk about her and share her story. And, like I said, her story is on Facebook is Aurora Story. My name's Rob Rosenblatt. Any other father who is going through this, fathers of twins, especially, because that's something. I mean, not many people have to. I mean, I shouldn't say not many, because there's a lot of people. I have a friend of mine that I've reached out. They reached out to me in California that had a loss of a twin, which I didn't know. We lost contact from college. So people are going through this. So if you're a father that has a loss of a child, an infant, loss of a twin, look me up on Facebook. I have no problem being that ear, being there to support you or help you, or just know you're not alone, because a platform like this really proves that we're not alone. So guys, I do appreciate you having me here and letting me share my story about Princess Aurora.
Well, thanks, Rob. I mean, wow. Wow. I'm so thankful that you got those 11 days. I cannot imagine the roller coaster ride, and I know Chris hates that. Chris hates that phrase. Can't imagine, and I get that, and I can't imagine the roller coaster ride during the pregnancy, and then it seems like it would be every second of those 11 days, just waiting for that moment. And as you said, thankful for every second that you got when it looked so impossible, but then also mourning the fact that you're going to lose your baby, your princess.
Yeah, I think a roller coaster is. I mean, Chris may hate that, but I think that is probably the best way to describe it is the amount of tears that we shed, whether it was tears of sadness or tears of joy. We would go 1 minute, it would be tears of joy, and literally a minute later, it would be tears of sadness. So it's a roller coaster is a great way to describe it. Sorry, Chris.
No, that's okay. Yeah, it's when Mason first went to heaven, my son, people who hadn't experienced loss kept saying to me, I can't imagine. And it was like that term right there is what was really like, I was like, well, I'm living it every day, so I can. So I wanted to say, stop saying that. I know people were just trying to be supportive, but they made it worse for me in that sense. So, Rob, thank you for sharing that story about Princess Aurora. Amazing to hear. I looked you up on Facebook while you were talking. She looks beautiful. Your son looks amazing. The roller coaster. Not only that, you guys just got married too. I mean, you got to throw that in the mix too. So that's a whole nother, avenue in that sense. So.
So we got married in November. We had the babies February 11th. We closed on our house February 22nd. So like the three biggest stressors in life we had within a 4-month span, and then I ended up getting a promotion in July. So it's like the last year has been like all the biggest stresses I think that can happen to people have happened. So
that is definitely a lot.
Yeah.
Another thing I want to make sure I threw in there real quick. Please don't ever try to. I've heard you say it a couple times now, a loss is a loss. You lost your daughter. So it doesn't matter if it was 11 days or 11 years. It doesn't matter. You lost your daughter. Don't try and downplay that any bit at all, okay? You're a bereaved parent just like us. Doesn't matter, all right? So, I don't know how, I'm 100% sure Dan feels the same way. So don't try to ever downplay that. And for those that are listening, if you had your child for just 5 minutes, you're a bereaved parent. If you lost your child while they were still in the womb, you're a bereaved parent. Don't ever try to downplay that. We're all here to support each other and help each other in that sense.
Yeah, absolutely. I know. I think it was with Joseph just a couple weeks ago we talked about it, because I wrestle all the time with the being thankful for 9.5 amazing years with Jameson and all the memories that we had versus if I had lost him as a newborn or in the womb. What would that do, not having any memories? And I'm thrilled that you had 11 days of memories when it looked, again, so impossible. But I think it's natural that, I would still be killing myself thinking about the what ifs of the other 80 years. Do you have any thoughts on that, Rob? It seems like you've really handled things very well, all things considered, but.
Yeah, I feel like I don't have any. I really don't think of the what ifs. I really don't, because we weren't supposed to get anything, and we got 11 days. And knowing her condition, if we would have intervened, would have we gotten any time at home with the two of them, because she might have just ended up passing after 11 days anyway, but stuck in a hospital with tubes inside her. Or, if she, God forbid, was still with us today, what kind of quality of life would she have?
Right.
Would she be on feeding tubes? Would she be on a ventilator? And then if she is having that kind of quality of life, what would Oliver have as well? With all the attention in this, they told us in the hospital that some of the kids that have the A-lobe, the most severe of the holoprosencephaly, they could live 5, 7, 8, 10 years. And if we did that and kept her alive for selfish reasons, what would that do for our son, who is a perfectly healthy baby boy? And so we the entire time we just, again, we knew that it was the right thing was to do, was to let her, and that's where the Aurora story came in. She would write her own story, and she did it for 11 days. And I don't think, knowing that there wasn't going to be a positive outcome, whether it was 11 days or 11 years, I don't think there's any regrets that Crystal and I have. I don't want to speak for her, but I feel pretty confident saying that I don't think we have no regrets, and we don't think about the what ifs, because, especially because we do have Oliver. I feel for anybody who loses a child, but I couldn't imagine going through an entire birth or entire pregnancy and having, I don't want to say nothing to show for it, because you would have those memories, but you would not have the baby at all. So we are fortunate to have gone through this and have a perfectly healthy baby boy. Don't get me wrong, every night I put that kid down to sleep, and I turn on the monitor, because it's tough to fall asleep with him, knowing, with everything we went through. God forbid what something happens to this kid overnight. It's a fear that I have every single night, and I don't think the rest. I can't. And maybe it's just, it was going to be a normal, and you guys could tell me, it's a normal father instinct to always have that, like, fear that something's going to happen to your baby, but I feel like it's escalated because we already went through it.
Absolutely.
So.
Yeah, I would say Jan and I have actually talked about this on episodes about, I have 4 boys total and lost Mason. He is my third of the 4. And the fear I have almost every single day of this could happen again, and I know Dan, I'll let you talk how you feel about it, but we have had these discussions, and I think it is a very natural father instinct, because we want to protect our children. We want to make sure they're safe, and we know the worst of what can happen now. So, Dan, what do you think?
Yep, agreed. And we like Chris said, we've talked about it. I mentioned we've had Reese tested for the condition that took Jameson, and he doesn't have that. But what else who knows what else could be inside his body not working right that just takes us by surprise, like Jameson. I mean, we had 2 healthy boys with absolutely no indication of anything being wrong, and then literally in 11 hours we had 1 healthy boy. And so every single cough coming out of Reese takes me back and puts that fear in my heart of, oh no, what is that? And it's awful. So Rob,
Dan, you go ahead.
Rob, can you talk more about your marriage? On the grief groups, every day there's a dad out there posting about their marriage, and most of them are not looking very optimistic about it. And I don't remember what the stat is, but it's extremely high that marriages end in divorce after child loss and all that. And you've said numerous times that your wife and you were in sync on everything along the way, and it sounds like it's good now, but it's brand new. Just talk about your marriage and how you and your wife are going through this day by day and staying so strong during an awful event of your life.
Yeah, and it is brand new. However, when we met, like I said, it was the pandemic. The second I went over to her house, I pretty much never left. And so I was working from home. She was working from home. So we were together 24/7 for April, May. I mean, pretty much since April of 2020, 24/7, before I went back to work. And so each month was like, we like to consider each month a year, because it wasn't like the normal dating. It was so crazy how it happened too, because I was a 40-year-old man living with a roommate at the time, and she had a townhouse of her own. And so it's crazy how things just happened, and she didn't want any, like I stated earlier, she didn't want any kids, and then she's like, I think I can have a kid with you. And sure enough, not only did she have a kid with me, she had 2 with me at the same time. And I'm very, very, very fortunate that, again, everything with Aurora, even everything with Oliver now, and the plan on how we're going to raise him, we just mesh so well. We're just so, and I say the word in sync, but just everything, everything that I have these ideas, like it was my thought of creating Aurora Story Corporation so that we can honor her memory. And then she's like, well, let's do this. Let's do it for the, funeral expenses. And I'm like, oh, so like we're kind of piggybacking off of each other for everything that we're doing. And it's just, I can't even explain the love that I have for this woman because of how everything that she's gone through. And I've gone through a lot, as a father, but everything that she has gone through, she carried these babies. She can feel them. She had to go through a pregnancy and worry that any moment she could stop feeling her baby.
Right.
Like I can't even wrap my head around what she had to go through this entire thing. And so I'm not knowing that, and just the person that she is, we're just, we haven't, I don't want to knock on wood, but like, we don't fight. We don't disagree about anything. I don't know if that's unhealthy or not, but like, I say let's do this. She's like, okay, let's, it's like, we're just everything. And like you stated, is new. Our anniversary is coming up November 7th. So it could be coming up, or it could have already passed, depending when this airs. But our anniversary is November 7th. And it's just like, I feel like everything with Aurora brought us even closer. I feel like we were already close. And then dealing with that, and the 11 days with her, the treatment we give her, just brought us so much closer. And I don't know what to say. I mean, I'm very lucky. I'm very lucky because, like I said earlier, this could have torn us apart. And there's so many groups out there, or so many people out there that it's been hard on their marriage. But this has made us even stronger. And I think this is what's going to keep us together for so long, is knowing that we have this common bond of our kids, but just the commonalities that we have with everything.
Maybe that's the message to other dads and wives who may be listening too. That find the things you have in common, which is your baby, and just find, you got to fight for your marriage and find a way to make it work, and work together through everything.
And when these things happen, it's nobody's fault. And right. I think that's some of the things that rip these people apart, is that one of them is blaming somebody else. But I mean, it's nobody's fault that something happens, and in all of our cases here, like, nobody did anything to cause it. It's just, it's part of, I don't want to say part of life, but, I think of somebody once said to me that God only gives you what you can handle. And so for some reason, this torture was placed upon us here, and because we can handle it. And so I just think that I don't know. I don't even know the right words to say.
No, we've said the same things too. Sometimes it's hard to understand, for us, why God put us in these situations. But then I know Dan and I have talked, like, maybe we've been put in these situations so we can help others, because of how much we've learned from this, and how, I'm not going to say strong, but we're getting through it day by day. There's good days, there's bad days, but I know for Dan and I doing this podcast and hopefully helping others, it's motivating for me to keep going. And hopefully with you and Aurora Story and doing your nonprofit, that's another way. You're keeping her memory alive, and you're helping others at the same time. And that's the best way to really go about that. And Dan with Jameson's Joy really giving me a lot of motivation with getting my nonprofit set up. So don't know what the reason is, but if this is how we can help others, then we have to make the best of the worst situation ever.
Absolutely, absolutely. And for you guys, again, doing something like this, there's a reason. I hate the phrase that everything happens for a reason, but there's for some reason that this was put on us. And if like you said, if this is to help others, then I'm just like you guys, want to do it, whatever I can do.
Yep.
Because the pain is too real, and unfortunately, people are dealing with it and don't have an outlet. But I want them to know that they do have an outlet. They have us. They have so many other fathers out there that unfortunately are dealing with this.
Yeah, for sure. Rob, you've been through a lot in your short time of being a dad and being a married man, and you're doing a great job. Okay, there's a lot of pressure on dads, and especially a dad like you. You have a lot of kids looking up to you. I know Dan's a teacher. You're a principal. You were a teacher. A lot of kids look up to you. So I'm sure it's hard some days to maybe have that smile on your face when you really don't want to because you're thinking about Aurora. But how do you get through those days? Anything specific you do, or I'm sure you talk about her in school or your students know about her and.
My staff knows about her. I really don't. I'm in an elementary school, so I don't know if it's the right thing to talk about in an elementary school. I shouldn't say I don't feel comfortable, but I just don't know if I really want. I should say I don't want it out there. I mean, if kids find out about it, I have no problem talking about it, but it's not something I'm going to go ahead and broadcast. When I first got hired here, I started here in July, and I was debating whether to inform the staff about Aurora. And so I reached out to my former principal who I worked with, and Crystal told me, actually, she's like, you need to tell your teachers because you owe it to them. So I have this big mural of her, like I said, the mural of her that we had up at her service as like our 30 favorite photos. It's hanging in my office. So Crystal's like, you owe it to your staff to let them know because they're going to walk in one day, they're going to see that, and then it's going to be very uncomfortable. So I actually told the first day that I got hired here and I did my teacher introduction and introduced myself to my staff. I was real and I was a person. I told them that, I mean, it wasn't as long as what I did with you guys, but I gave them the short version of Aurora and everything I went through and kind of just related it back to our students here and how, especially after the pandemic, our kids are walking through this building and every building with baggage, and we don't see their baggage. And I'm the leader of this school, and I'm coming in with baggage, and I could come in with a smile on my face, and every day I come in here with, and I do have that smile on my face. I'm very energetic, I'm positive, but I still have this baggage and this heavy heart at all times. And so I'm able to, sometimes I just come in here, I shut my door, and I cry. I'm not gonna lie, I've done that a few times this year. There's, I see some of the kindergartners, or I see twins around the school, and I think that, like, my kids should be together. And so, like, those things are really, really hard to look at. And then, talking to some of the parents that have twins as well and want to say that I'm a twin parent, but do I say I'm a twin parent? Because then that ends up leading to the opening up a door. Do I, you know what I'm saying? Like, it's very difficult to even talk about that. So I like I said, I will close my door, but I want people to know. I just, that she existed, that she was with us, that we had twins. That Oliver is not just big, but he's a big brother to his by 2 minutes. I want people to know that. And if I got my socks that I like to wear, I got my shirt, as you can see here. Well, you two can see that I like to wear around of her. So anything I can do to just honor her memory. And like I said, if I need to close my door, there's times when I just text Crystal too, or call her and just, it happens. At random times, it just hits you. You see something, you hear something, and it hits you. And I'm in a fortunate position that for the most of the time, I can exclude myself from the situation if I need to. And let it out for a couple minutes, and then get back to living.
Yeah, I'll chime in on that. As a classroom teacher, I put it out there at my Meet the Teacher night each year because I know that there will be things we do through the year that trigger emotions. And I want the kids to know that when I break down in class, that hopefully they're not going to sit there and laugh at their teacher and like, what's he doing and all that. They're going to know what's going on. I've told my online kids this year too, like, hey, there's going to be a few times that I get triggered about something and I just need to send you away for 10 minutes so I can go into my office and close my door and regroup. And the parents and the kids have been absolutely wonderful about it. Um, an interesting thing on my end was the year Jameson passed, I had a kid in my class named Jameson. So that was extremely difficult going. I mean, on top of just going back to work after losing your child and life and everything, I had to go in every day and teach a kid named Jameson and call on this kid and all that. And that just destroyed me. But then this year, there's a kindergartner who is named Jameson. And 2.5 years out, I every day, I don't break down. It's more of a positive thing seeing him now because he just seems like a really cool little kid. And I'm sure the first few weeks he thought, who is this creepy teacher guy that keeps talking to me? But I've talked to his mother and she knows our story. And so now he'll just come up every day and if I don't see him, he'll come to me and we'll fist pump each other and all that. And that for me, it's turned into a good thing after 2.5 years. Now it's like, hey, Jameson's still in school with me, and that part's nice.
That's funny you say that because I had an Aurora when I was at my old school prior to coming here as an AP. There was an Aurora, and ended up becoming, she was a kindergartner as well. And I don't, you're not allowed to have favorites as a teacher or as a principal, but
Yep.
That little girl became my favorite, and she was just like a really cool little girl. Just, and, I'm like, oh, so
Yep.
Yeah, I totally get what you mean.
Yep. Well, Rob, is there anything else you feel like you want to say that you haven't?
No, I just want to keep emphasizing the fact that there, to all the dads that are listening, that there are people out there that are going through the same thing, and to reach out, whether it's Dan, Chris, myself, or anybody that is in the Grieving Dads groups, anybody we're here to be an ear. We don't have the answers. We're not. I mean, we probably won't say anything that's going to make you feel better because nobody can make you feel better. But knowing that if there's at any point you need somebody just to listen, and I'm very fortunate here that people don't have a choice but to listen. So, but if you ever want somebody to listen, I would definitely be willing to do that, and we're in this together.
Good. And tell us, where are you on Aurora Story Corporation? Are you close to launching that, or how far out so that people can look for it? We like shameless plugs here.
We actually we have our tax ID stuff already. We have applied in North Las Vegas for our business license. We actually over the weekend did our 501c3, so we're probably a couple months away from launching it, but by the time the IRS approves everything, so we're probably a couple months away. We are hoping that we can have it launched by her first birthday is our goal, to have a big event for her first birthday.
Good. So everybody who's listening, keep your ears open for that. Aurora, tell it again, Rob. I don't want to say it wrong.
The corporation is Aurora Story Corporation. We do have a Facebook page that's already created for Aurora. It's called Aurora Story, and it has mine and Crystal's entire journey from the second Aurora was born till I think our last post was yesterday, when one of my former teacher friends, or I should say teacher friends, planted a tree, gave me a letter because she planted a tree in Israel in honor of Aurora. So it's continuously updated with just memorable things and things that make us remember Aurora. Again, it's Aurora Story. So go ahead and find it on Facebook and follow along. And once the corporation set up, that's where we will release everything. And we would love to have as much support as possible.
Awesome. I do have to say, Chris, do you have anything about about Aurora and Rob's story before I go off on a tiny little tangent and tie it up in a bow?
No, Rob, I just want to thank you for coming on and sharing your story. I think you're the first parent we've interviewed that's lost a twin, and it was good for me. I learned a lot, to be honest with you. As grieving dads, and as a person that wants to help support other grieving dads, it's important that we hear lots of different stories, and how different dads got through their moments. And you're the first one with twin. So I learned a lot. I really appreciate you coming on, telling us about Aurora and your story. And hopefully it's a friendship to come, and we can keep talking. I really appreciate the time for sure tonight.
Appreciate you.
Yeah, likewise. So, Rob, I do want, for everybody who's listening, I want to tie a bow on it to every parent. Yes, it is inappropriate to talk to your teachers and your administration about whether or not they're single and whether or not you can hook them up. But yes, if we are single men, we want it. I went through the same thing. I had like 5 different dates over the years that parents hooked me up on. Parent conferences are always interesting as a single guy because you spend about 10 minutes talking about their kid and about 20 minutes talking about your love life. So I tried hard not to laugh when you were telling that, knowing that this is a serious podcast here, but I don't know, Rob. I get it.
Thank you. Absolutely.
So I'm glad it worked out for you, my friend.
Maybe inappropriate, but sometimes it's okay.
Yes.
So thank you.
Yes.
Angie, if you're listening, or if you ever listen, Amos, thank you guys.
Yep. Awesome. Well, Rob, thanks so much, man. It's a pleasure to meet you, an honor to hear your story about your princess. And Chris and I admire you tremendously that you're finding the strength to try to make a positive thing out of a really negative thing. So
I appreciate you guys again giving this platform and offering this. So thank you.
Great. Thanks. Well, everybody, thanks for listening to another episode of A Father's Love, Healing Through Heartache. And until next time, take care, go out, love other people, and help carry them through whatever hurts that they're going through. We'll see you next time.